Hello, my name is Joe D'Amico, and I'm the Director for the Virginia Department of General Services. Among other duties, the Department of General Services is responsible for the care, maintenance, and operation of the facilities and grounds here at beautiful and historic Capitol Square. Over the last few years, we've planned, designed, and performed selected building demolition, and now are in the construction and restoration phase on 3 significant and historic projects that will enhance the area around the Capitol grounds and provide needed infrastructure upgrades. I'm excited to show you how these projects are progressing. Up first is the General Assembly Building, affectionately known as the GAB. The GAB houses General Assembly member and support staff offices. It also is open to the citizens of the Commonwealth and other visitors participating in the legislative process. The old General Assembly building was an aggregate of 4 buildings of vastly different architectural styles that were constructed over 55 years and joined together. The first of the original buildings was constructed in 1912 as the classically designed Life Insurance Company of Virginia building. Due to the high level of craftsmanship of the 1912 building, a decision was made to keep the south and east sections of the building's facade and incorporate it into the new GAB design. Before we get into where we are with construction, let's take a look at how far we've come. In 2017, contractors began the start of demolition as they mobilized to the job site. You can see the steel bracing going up to protect and support the 1912 facade on the southeast corner. In 2018, our contractor began cutting away at the building with hydraulic shears and a lot of manpower. They meticulously separated the building from the freestanding facade. Debris removal in the lower level continued through 2018 along with the excavation. In 2019, they began work on the 9th Street Tunnel on the west end of the lower level. Foundations began along with the start of the elevator core in the center of the building foundation walls, along the perimeter and continuous waterproofing surrounding the building. Earlier this year, steel began going up, a 12-month journey that would take us to top out in early 2021. Mechanical, electrical, and plumbing rough-in started in the lower level and followed up the building prior to concrete floors being poured. Stair towers throughout the building continued as steel went vertical and precast started in August of 2020. And this brings us to where we are today in December 2020.
General Assembly building construction is a very complicated project from both the planning point, both from planning and execution point of view. The General Assembly building, when it complete, it is a 14-story building above ground and 1 level below. It is connected with 2 tunnels, one to the Capitol extension, the other one to the new parking deck to be built. The construction activities within the buildings happening inside and outside the building at the moment. On the inside, we have mechanical, electrical, and plumbing are happening as we speak. On the outside, in the early spring of this year, we actually begin the first piece of precast installation. And those precast actually is simulated limestone to allow a natural look of limestone, feel like limestone and it look like limestone. And it has architectural details at the corners and at the pilasters to complement the 1912 historic facade.
What was a 320,000 square foot building will now be a 414,000 square foot building on the same site footprint to be completed in the summer of 2022. Visitors who come to the GAB will have access to a large first floor cafeteria and more efficient committee and subcommittee room spaces. This is the first floor entrance into the north and south vestibules, into the security hall, and then into the main lobby. This will be adorned with stone and ornamental metal throughout. This is the second floor. The main gallery on the second floor looks over into the first floor lobby area. On the wings of the gallery are the House subcommittee rooms. On the east side of the second floor is a beautiful 2-story commons area where the public can gather between meetings. Committee rooms on the upper floors of the building, such as the one on the 12th floor, overlook beautiful, scenic views of the Richmond skyline. Framing is coming along nicely on many floors where legislative and support staff offices will be located, as well as committee rooms such as the one you see in this rendering. The largest committee room, which is located in the basement, will hold approximately 389 audience members, over 100 seats larger than the largest committee room in the old GAB.
There are many components to these buildings. There are 9,900 pieces of steel. There are 1,281 pieces of precast to be installed, and there's 778 windows to be installed following the precast installations.
The new GAB will provide a more functional, modern space for not only the legislators and staff who use the space for important work of the Commonwealth, but also for the thousands of visitors who come each year to participate in the legislative process. Now let's take a look at our next project, the renovation of Old City Hall right next door to the GAB. Constructed between 1886 and 1894 in the Gothic Revival style, Old City Hall is on the National Register of Historic Places and is a National Historic Landmark. It was purchased by the Commonwealth and used to house state government offices prior to start of its restoration. It was last renovated in 1983. This current restoration is the most comprehensive since the building was first constructed.
The color scheme that most people are probably familiar with was pretty controversial when it went in. It was not the original historic color scheme, which was a clear finished wood with a sort of a cream colored paint. And we are going back to that original historical color scheme. At the time the building was built, there was no or very little electrical service in the city, and so the majority of the light that was getting into the building was from the atrium and from the exterior. And with the new skylight system that we'll be putting in and the cream-colored paint, and we hope to restore a lot of that natural light. As much as I wish we could make the clock tower open to the public because it's a very interesting space, unfortunately is not going to be accessible, but we will be restoring the clocks completely, the clock faces and the hands. The hands right now were replaced in the 80s with a sort of very plain looking clock hands, but the original clock hands were these elaborate wooden hands, and we'll be replacing them with some metal hands that more closely resemble what was originally there. And of course, all 4 clock faces will be lighted and work again, so you'll be able to look up anytime and see the correct time. Old City Hall is one of the grandest buildings on the square, in my opinion, and one of 3 National Historic Landmarks on the square. I'm really glad that they didn't tear it down and that I get the opportunity to restore it to its former glory.
The Old City Hall renovation project should be completed in the spring of 2022, and we can't wait for people to see how this restoration brings the building's historical finishes back to life. Our final project is another renovation of a historically significant structure, Morrison's Row, located on the east side of Governor Street behind the Executive Mansion. Morrison's Row is listed on the National Register of Historic Places as it represents the last example of residential row homes on Governor Street. Now under restoration, these 3 homes built in 1853 are examples of Italianate design. In the 1800s and early 1900s, political leaders and merchants lived in grand homes ringing Capitol Square. In the 1850s, Richmond attorney James Marion Morrison is believed to have asked German-born architect Albert Liebrecht to design 3 attached row houses. The 3 Italianate-style homes that made up Morrison's Row resemble the row housing known as Beaufront that were popular in Boston in the same period. The Commonwealth purchased the 3 separate buildings during the 1970s and 80s, where they served as office space for state agencies until several years ago when they were vacated.
While this is mainly a renovation project, in order to adapt Morrison's Row for its future reuse by state agency offices, it also includes approximately 7,000 square feet of new construction. This new construction includes a stair tower at the south end of the building, which will house a stairwell, an elevator, as well as a 4-story connecting corridor attached to the rear of the buildings, which will allow the 3 buildings to be interconnected and accessible. Speaking of accessibility, that was one of the main challenges the designers had to address early on. A 3D scan and survey of the buildings revealed that there were actually 18 elevations between the buildings. This was due to the fact that they were originally constructed as 3 completely separate units. The solution to address accessibility ended up being the construction of ramps and small lifts in that rear connecting corridor. While this project will also provide modern workplaces to its end users, it was also important to us to preserve as many historic details as possible. A few of the items that our historical assessment recommended to be preserved and designed around included the marble fireplace mantles, plaster crown molding, and wood trim found mainly in the front parlor areas of the buildings. And finally, DGS wanted to restore the buildings back to their original colors. During our historical assessment, a detailed paint survey was conducted on the exterior facades of the buildings using microscopy. The results of this study showed that in its nearly 107-year life, the building was repainted at least 20 times. Some of these colors ranged from cream to red-brown to even blue-gray. We'll be restoring the buildings back to their original cream buff color.
Once the project is complete, in late summer of 2021, it will return to state agency offices. That concludes our behind-the-scenes tour of these 3 pivotal construction and restoration projects. Make sure to follow us on the DGS website and on social media to stay up to date on these and other projects happening around Capitol Square.